The Batman Arkham series is one of my favorite games of all time. Spanning 2 generations, this series remains one of the crowning achievements in video games, and that's just not my opinion. These games are often considered to be the best superhero games of all time, so much so that many people, including myself, compared it to Marvel's Spider-Man and whether Insomniac Games toppled Rocksteady. Rocksteady, who only developed one other project before Batman Arkham Asylum called Urban Chaos Ride Response in 2006, received mediocre reception. It was thanks to the Batman Arkham series that Rocksteady became one of the most renowned studios in gaming. Despite the rumors of a new game in development and the fact that it was shot down when the Game Awards came and went and no teaser appeared, I decided to replay these incredible games and see why these titles are heralded as some of the best in gaming. And yes, I'll briefly be touching on the PSP Blackgate and also the VR release as well. But until then, let's focus on the major installments in the Batman Arkham series. Let's start at the beginning. Batman Arkham Asylum, released over a decade ago to critical reception. The game followed Batman after capturing the Joker and returning him to Arkham Asylum. Batman senses that something is wrong and his intuition is right, with the Joker escaping and taking over the Asylum, executing a plan that the Joker has been working on for weeks. We learned that the Asylum doctors were working on a formula that would grant users superhuman strength and endurance. Unknown to the doctors, Joker has been funding the project, and when the lead researcher found out, attempted to shut down the project known as Titan. Joker wouldn't allow it and purposely got captured to take what is his. We also find out that Titan was created by modifying Bane's venom and genetically modifying plants to secrete the finished product. The narrative doesn't attempt to stray from Batman's lore. It's clear when revisiting this title that Rocksteady didn't take a lot of chances with the narrative. Even the character design was taken from iconic designs from past versions of the characters. Some of them look downright cartoony, like Scarecrow. The only exception was Harley Quinn, who featured a unique outfit. This safe approach also translated to optional objectives. Riddler's challenges, which served as a bulk of the game's activities, is just an Easter egg hunt. I remember collecting these Riddler trophies and solving so many of these riddles to be much more entertaining, but when I revisited the game, they weren't. When I was a kid, I attempted to get the most of every game I purchased since I was limited to 1 or 2 games per year, so collecting these optional collectibles offered a way to extend the life of this amazing title, but in reality it was just busy work. When replaying this game, I decided to see how long it would take to complete the entire game in comparison to the Riddler's challenges, trying to complete them all without a guide. The campaign took me about 4 hours and the Riddler challenges about 3. When looking at the story as a whole, Riddler didn't even serve that much of a purpose as part of the Arkham Asylum riot. There was no consequence for not solving his riddles, and they only served as a means to unlock optional character bios and tapes that provided more information about the Batman universe. I mean, the only crime he really commits is breaking out of Arkham before his sentence is up. Riddler's challenges did highlight how restrictive the island was. Despite being a semi-open map, there was little to do. It felt confining, but perhaps that was intentional. After all, this was an asylum designed to keep the criminally insane. There were challenge maps, but honestly, I've never been a fan of these. Completing them were required to gain 100% completion, but they were also a way to extend the life of the game. You were given the option to play as the Joker for a separate challenge encounter, which highlighted the Joker's tactics. It was a fun distraction, but honestly, I would have preferred a small side story where Joker fought off Arkham guards within the campaign. The gameplay was a lot more creative. A rock, paper, scissors combat system where Batman would have to maintain momentum by counterattacking, executing certain attacks based on the weapons each enemy used, and maintaining a high combo meter to perform specialized moves. The Predator challenges had Batman sticking to the shadows and using hit and run tactics. The combat was revolutionary, and it was used in various different games over the course of years. It's still being used today. The gadgets also served a purpose beyond combat and Predator challenges, with Batman occasionally having to perform basic platforming. Most of these just had you using the correct gadget, but finding which one was part of the fun. This did mean you had to be in detective mode during most of the game as to not miss any breakable walls. It provided a tactical advantage as well, meaning that much of the game's incredible visuals would be wasted since it had this blue filter on most of the time. Rocksteady did include an experience system so you would feel more powerful as you progressed, but in reality, Batman should have had access to all these techniques from the beginning. I mean, the inverted takedown should have been a passive skill. Where Arkham Asylum did excel was in its presentation and atmosphere, with its gritty tone and twisted design of the asylum complementing the game's narrative. The boss battles benefited from this, with Batman taking down Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, Bane, and Titan Joker. Bane was just a recycled Titan fight, and Joker's final battle was a horde mode. But despite this, the game's overall execution, I was wondering why these boss battles were more thrilling than they actually were, and it was because the way they were executed. The way you were fighting the enemies, the way Batman was about to take down these incredible villains, that's what made the boss fights so exciting. Despite the fact that you were really doing nothing like just platforming from one location to the next or fighting a series of enemies. Rocksteady remained loyal to their original designs, such as Poison Ivy's desire to place plant life above human, Joker's sick humor, and Harley Quinn's Stockholm Syndrome. The construction of the Titan formula and how Joker planned to use it in order to take over Gotham was something I would expect from the animated series or any type of comic book series. It wasn't something that I would expect from a fully franchised and realized video game series. But overall, it did work because when I started to replay the game, the narrative still clicked. It still was eventful even though I knew what was about to happen, and because of that, you can play this game over and over and still find enjoyment in how the characters interact with one another. But despite the missteps of Batman Arkham Asylum, it set such an incredibly high precedent for this series that Rocksteady was able to go above and beyond for their next game, which would become one of the best Batman Arkham games ever made. Right from the start, you'll notice that Rocksteady went big with Batman Arkham City. The game starts off with a brand new playable character, Catwoman. Before you know it, it was a bright light appearing in front of you, and Hugo Strange starts talking, and in seconds you were taken to a press conference featuring Bruce Wayne. The game darts between Bruce's campaign to shut down Arkham City and Hugo Tarkin, ended with Hugo revealing that he knows that Bruce is Batman, and Bruce getting locked away into Arkham City. Things do not slow down from there. Bruce is forced into the city while attempting to protect the political prisoners around him. And if you take the time to look around, you'll notice familiar faces within the Batman universe, including future villains you'll encounter while in the city. After a small fight against the Penguin, Bruce dons the armor and becomes Batman. His job? To find out what Hugo meant about Protocol 10. One of the biggest issues with Arkham Asylum was the semi-open world. Despite having the ability to travel mostly anywhere, the island lacked any content and felt confining. Arkham City breaks this issue by offering a larger city to explore and adding more villains. The story takes on multiple paths with two major elements. The first being finding out what Protocol 10 is, and the second saving your own life. Within the first hour, we find out that Joker is dying and he almost killed Catwoman. After escaping an obvious trap, Batman locates Joker to find out that it's true, Joker is dying. After exposure to the Titan formula from the previous game, Joker's blood has been infected with a rare blood disorder. To encourage Batman to help him, Joker infects Batman with his blood. Knowing Batman wouldn't care about dying, Joker sends his blood to hospitals across Gotham, and now Bruce must find a cure.
It's breath knowing that Gotham is doing the same.
What are you talking about?
Oh, didn't I say? I've spent weeks shipping samples of my blood to emergency rooms all over the city.
So that's Protocol 10. Poison Gotham. I expected more.
Protocol 10? Never heard of it.
While all this is happening, Catwoman is searching for a way inside Hugo Strange's vault and is seeking Ivy's help. This is where you get to play as Catwoman. Distinct to Batman, Selina has the ability to manually climb up surfaces and can crawl on French ceilings. This can get a bit annoying as you have to have timed button presses in order to climb quicker, and maybe it's just me, but I felt like Selina was a little weaker than Batman and required more hits to take down enemies. When you finally reached Ivy, you learn that she's annoyed with Selina because she allowed her plants to die when she was supposed to be taking care of them. This was also a huge waste of a boss battle and reminded me of the finale of Arkham Asylum, with Selina defeating waves of enemies before reaching Ivy. Returning to Batman, we find out that Mr. Freeze was being extorted by Joker to develop a cure, but Victor got kidnapped by Penguin, who is in a turf war with Two-Face and Joker, hoping that Joker's death will allow him to take full control of Arkham City. Now Batman must save Mr. Freeze from Penguin, but before he can do this, he has to take out military-grade jammers. It may seem that this was put into the game to extend the longevity of the title, but it becomes clear later on in the game that this isn't the case. Moving on, Batman destroys the jammers, saves Mr. Freeze, rescues the undercover cops that Penguin has been using for target practice, and defeats Solomon Grundy. Rocksteady has this thing where they tease future encounters, and despite this, it did feel like Deus Ex Machina how Grundy just happened to be underneath the museum that Penguin owns. With Penguin now stopped and Freeze safe, Batman learns that Victor did make a cure that requires a catalyst to prevent it from decaying. It's here that we chase a League of Assassins member that was trapped by Penguin. I love this chase scene because it finally introduces Robin, Tim Drake specifically. We've seen Batman interact with Cash, random guards, and Oracle, but it's something how he interacts with Drake that highlights Batman's personality. He trusts Drake and his skill, but wants him to follow orders and prefers to work alone, which we will follow up on Batman Arkham Knight when we explore that title. Here Batman finds out that the League has a Lazarus pit below Arkham City, another strange coincidence. It also here that Batman is feeling the effects of Joker's toxin, with Batman on the brink of death. I remember watching this scene, and when I played Arkham City for the first time, I was wondering why Batman was dying so quick compared to the Joker. After replaying this game, it kinda made sense, as Batman has been taking on a lot of difficult physical and mental challenges that may have increased the rate of infection. I especially love this scene because Batman's parents call out to him, showing that despite everything, Bruce still desires to be with them, and all he has to do is let go and he can get what he desires so much, but instead, Batman pushes through for the sake of Gotham. I do use Bruce and Batman interchangeably because anyone who's read Batman's comic books knows that Bruce Wayne and Batman are two different people. Anyway, that's just a little side note. It's only thanks to the demon blood given to Batman by the League that Batman doesn't die. With the help of Talia al Ghul, Batman convinces her that he's ready to join the League of Assassins. Of course, this is a lie, and Batman defeats her father, despite the League of Assassins trying to convince Batman to kill him. I love the build up to this fight because even though the player knows that Batman will never kill, Talia is giving up hope that maybe, just maybe, he may join the League of Assassins because he's at the brink of death. Raish, unwilling to accept no and seen as Batman as the ultimate successor to his campaign, will do anything to get Batman to join the League of Assassins. Throughout the fight, Batman is constantly told by the League, Talia, and Raish that he has to kill him if he hopes to get out of here alive. With this massive hallucinogenic battle, it's actually kind of annoying that you don't get to see what actually is transpiring, but the fight itself is so excellent that it's hard not to become excited during the fight as you see Raish use multiple versions of himself in this hallucinogenic battle. He comes up into this giant statue-like figure, you use your disruptor in order to deal damage, and then he just burst out of the sand, started swinging away. Yes, you just press Y in order to counter out his attacks, but it's so epic as you see Batman block every incoming sword attack. The fight doesn't change throughout the entire battle, but the execution and presentation is so well done that it's one of my favorite fights in all of the Batman Arkham series, especially during the midpoint when Talia is walking around Batman and her father telling him that the only way to get out of here alive is to kill her father. And then eventually leading up to this epic scene where Raish takes Talia and threatens to kill her unless Batman kills him first. Batman, being the clever person that he is, takes Raish down using his clever wit and gadgets, but then Raish opens up to Batman stating that he's afraid of what he's going to become and that the only way to stop this monster from being born is to ultimately become the leader of the League of Assassins, which of course Batman has no interest in.
Each time I enter the pit, I am frightened of what will come out.
The Lazarus pit has corrupted your mind. Think about it. If your pit falls into the wrong hands, you'll be powerless to stop centuries of destruction. This is your chance for redemption, Raish. Call off your crusade, or I'll be back for you. Arkham City.
All of this is happening while Hugo constantly counts down to Protocol 10. This countdown highlights how much time has transpired and serves as a great way to track the urgency of Batman's mission. Batman, now with Ra's blood, returns to Freeze only for the Doctor to betray him. We learn that Joker has Victor's wife, and that's why he's been making the cure for Joker. After an intense fight, which I found to be both aggravating and very awesome because you had to constantly shift your tactics after each time you attacked Mr. Freeze. And if you're playing on New Game Plus, you're going to need a Winky in order to defeat him because you have to use every possible technique you can conjure up, and trust me, you don't know what all of them are. After the fight, Harley takes the cure beneath Batman and Mr. Freeze's commotion, and now Batman must go retrieve it, but you can also look for Victor's wife if you're feeling charitable. Things look even bleaker when Batman finds out that Joker looks to be cured and that Protocol 10 is an execution order to kill everyone inside Arkham City if a massive breakout were to ever happen. We learn that Hugo has been supplying weapons and other supplies to the inmates to gain the support of Gotham to execute it, hence why Penguin had military-grade jammers and everyone seemed to have guns. This adds more weight to how Hugo was so confident that Protocol 10 would have been given the green light before the decision was even made with an exact countdown. When going to retrieve the cure from Joker, you do notice that Harley has been tied up for some reason, and later on you get to find out why. When finally reaching Joker, we get a short cutscene that plays with the player seeing Joker near death, then perfectly fine. Using detective mode reveals a hidden secret of what is to come. But like most of Rocksteady's missteps, this involves a missed opportunity of a great possible boss fight. Instead, Joker just acts like an ordinary henchman. He can be knocked out completely, but he just doesn't do anything unique. It's completely shameful considering that Joker has some incredible hand-to-hand combat, but you could simply just do what I'm doing here. Just beat the living crap out of him, he calls more guards, and then you just have this giant horde mode where you just fight a series of guards. Most of this battle is just you managing the enemies on screen, eventually defeating them, and then a cutscene plays. Batman finds himself at the mercy of Joker. Talia swoops in and saves Batman with the promise of immortality for Joker, and Joker agrees. Honestly, I never understood why Talia just didn't kill Joker here. She definitely has the speed and precision to kill him before he could kill Batman, but maybe Talia was trying to create the perfect situation where Batman will be forced to kill. As it's made clear that Talia didn't know about the Joker's ongoing ruse, and she pays the ultimate price for underestimating him. Moving on, we do get to see what Catwoman has been doing this entire time. Ivy agrees to help Selina get into the vault in exchange for saving a rare plant that Hugo has trapped inside the vault. Catwoman of course succeeds in her infiltration, and depending on the player you can either kill the plant or leave it for Ivy to collect later. It's here that Selina sees Batman in dire need of help. You can choose to help Batman or leave Arkham City. However, by leaving, an alternate ending plays where Gotham is destroyed and the criminals inside take over the city, highlighting how important Selina was to the Arkham narrative. However, if you choose wrong, you are forced to make the right decision as the game rewinds. There's also a really cool Easter egg, which I highlight in my Batman Arkham City Easter egg video, which I will leave a link in the description below. Please check it out, it does help me out. But eventually Selina does save Batman. With Batman now safe, Selina goes into hiding and Protocol 10 has started. Batman wanting to save Talia from Joker is blocked by Alfred. Alfred knows that Bruce wants to save Talia, but knows that Batman must save Gotham from Hugo.
These people die.
My tracker's not activated. Reroute all Wayne Tech satellites to boost the signal.
I can't do that. I realize it is difficult, Sam, but you need to decide if one life is worth sacrificing to save 1,000.
Don't do this, Alfred.
Batman must save Gotham. I'm sorry, but deep down, you know I'm right.
Oracle.
Despite Bruce's opposition, Batman indirectly agrees and starts his infiltration of Hugo Strange's HQ, stealing codes and finding his way through elite Tiger Guards. When finally reaching Hugo, we learn the truth that Hugo has been part of the League of Assassins and has been planning to show he's worthy to be Rash's successor by creating Arkham City and killing all the criminals inside. Ra's is unimpressed and kills Hugo after Batman defeated him. After pleading with Ra's, Hugo decides to commit suicide, hoping to take Ra's and Batman, but fails in doing so. Ra's falls to his death, but is later revived by a Lazarus pit. You can come back to where his body is impaled and it is gone. But things aren't over. Despite Hugo's death, Joker is still alive and has taken Talia and plans to execute her. After luring Batman into the theater, Talia kills Joker. It's here that we see that Joker got Clayface to impersonate him throughout the adventure. That's how he appeared to look well, but his motives for doing so are a bit unclear. But nevertheless, it was a really cool twist that I didn't see coming. I think a lot of gamers didn't as well. It really plays with the player, showing that there's something going on the entire time and we showed it underneath your face, but you just didn't look hard enough.
Surprise!
Mr. J, you look perfect.
Ring, ring. So how do you keep a secret from the world's greatest detective? Well, do you know? You stick it right in front of him, right under his long, pointy nose. And wait.
Joker wants you to think he's sick. Then wait. Got you.
You fell for the old fake Joker gang, Batman.
Talia!
The only thing that really didn't make sense was Clayface's purpose in all this. He states that he wants to become Batman, but I just really don't understand how the Joker tricked him into doing this. I mean, the Joker is notorious for tricking people into doing things for him, and he has shown that he was extorting Victor in order to get him to make the cure, but with Clayface, it just seems to come out of nowhere, similar to Solomon Grundy. Joker uses this opportunity to kill Talia permanently. What follows is a pretty cool and intense fight, literally, where you use freeze grenades and explosives to destroy Clayface's body before using Talia's blade to chop away Clayface. It's pretty cool, especially when you look at the animation as Batman just uses this amazing sword technique and slices away Clayface. I mean, just look at this. And even though Clayface didn't really make much sense to just appear out of nowhere, his boss battle was absolutely fantastic. It's definitely clear that Rocksteady decided, hey, the last boss battle was just a horde fight in Arkham Asylum. Let's not do that again. Instead, let's end on a high note, something that's extremely memorable. So maybe that's why they decided on Clayface, you know, have something that's just truly amazing. And the fight was that, with you just swinging away with Talia's sword, taking out replicas of Clayface and slowly cutting away at his body. Eventually going into the Lazarus Pit as you take down Clayface once and for all. I'm not really sure if you kill him here or not, but considering Batman doesn't kill, maybe he didn't. Maybe Clayface just went into this type of soupy nature and decided to go into hiding. I'm not really sure, but either way, it was amazing. And eventually Joker sees the Lazarus Pit and then decides, hey, I'm gonna try and get in there and get the immortality I deserve. But of course, Batman is not gonna have it. The game ends with Batman consuming the cure and leaving half before Joker appears and stabs Batman, causing him to drop it. Joker, of course, blames Batman for this, but in a twisted joke, Batman tells him that despite everything, he would have saved him.
Think of it as a running gag. No!
Are you happy now?
Do you want to know something funny? Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
That actually is pretty funny.
What ends is that Joker actually does die, smiling and coughing away his last breath as he laughs at Batman's final joke. What follows is Batman carrying Joker's lifeless body outside for everyone to see, and Batman just walking away, completely expressionless, like nothing happened, in a way to cover up what he's truly feeling. I guess in a way he may blame himself for what happened, but it wasn't his fault as Joker was the one responsible. Either way, maybe Batman just didn't know how to respond to this. But things aren't over yet. Selina decides it's time to leave Arkham City and you get to take control of Catwoman once again. She heads back to her apartment to grab her stuff and it explodes. Two-Face has planted explosives in hopes of killing Catwoman for what she did in the beginning of the game, trying to steal from him and also leaving a giant scar on his face. He's also taken all her stuff. so she decides to head to Two-Face where he's holed up, in the museum where Penguin used to hold up. Selina defeats Two-Face and finds out that half her stuff has been given away to his henchmen. She then hunts them down, takes them all out, grabs her stuff, and that's it. That's the end of Batman Arkham City. This was definitely my favorite game in the Rocksteady Arkham trilogy, as it goes above and beyond with the story, connecting everything together nicely, from how the villains got all their equipment to Hugo Strange's motives behind Arkham City. I especially love how Rocksteady went above the optional content. You have encounters with Deadshot, Bane, Zsasz, Hush, and the return of the Riddler. There's much more diversity here, and it makes the city feel much more alive and dangerous. Especially I love how the Riddler is an actual threat. After kidnapping people from the church, Riddler forces Batman to solve his riddles or they will die, offering an actual incentive to completing them. In addition, they were a lot more challenging and served more like actual problems than simple Easter egg hunts. I mean, there are Easter egg hunts, but still, there were actually pretty intricate puzzles. The other optional objectives had similar payouts, like Deadshot ended with a boss encounter with the assassin, or helping Mr. Freeze find his wife and seeing the ice bridge that goes from the police department all the way to Nora's location. Best of all is that completing these optional objectives open up story elements not shared within the campaign, but offer insight into critical information about the game itself. For example, the Mad Hatter has an incredible side mission where you go into this hallucination. After defeating the Hatter, you gain access to his tapes with Hugo Strange, where you find out that Hugo used Jarvis to create the mind control technology used to convince Quincy Sharp into building Arkham City. And we also learned that the Tiger Guards that we've been fighting are actually forgotten patients from Arkham Asylum that Hugo Strange used Jarvis's technology on, convincing them that they were elite soldiers and technically making them the biggest victim in Hugo Strange's plan. Instead of playing it safe and telling a contained story, Rocksteady built on the previous game to create their own Batman narrative. It still remained loyal to the source material, but had its own Rocksteady interpretation, and the presentation and atmospheres remained a 10 out of 10. Seriously, this game looks good and sounds incredible. Since this was a bigger game, Rocksteady extended on Batman's mobility and combat mechanics. Jumping into Arkham Asylum then Arkham City, it becomes quickly apparent that Batman was quicker and had a larger range of movement, able to dash dozens of feet to hit an enemy, and easier time to execute combos. It felt more arcadey than Asylum, and it was way better for it. The best new additions was the beatdown that allowed you to build up a combo and knock enemies out quickly, but it also made enemies charge you more frequently. The Predator options were also extended on. There was much more control when landing from a high area, and more options when taking down enemies from high areas or breakable walls, including a double takedown option. However, you can still manipulate the AI pretty easily.
Understood. Commencing in 3, 2, 1.
Perhaps the biggest addition was the improved gliding. By mixing together a nosedive function, you can bring up momentum and pull yourself up into a glide and move through the air much more effectively. It takes some time to get used to, but once you get used to it, you can cover the entire map within minutes. I did find it strange that you can avoid the improved Batclaw that propels Batman into the air. Like in Arkham Asylum, I did not like the leveling system. It was more elaborate here and served as a way to encourage high combos and variety in your playstyle for more experience, but that damn level up notification kept blocking the compass. I also hated that there was no fast travel system. Overall, Batman Arkham City successfully built on the first game and with improved gameplay and story. The optional content was much more fleshed out that provided more context into how everything was connected. Rocksteady did continue Arkham City's story with the short DLC campaign Harley Quinn's Revenge. It was a short campaign where you took control of both Batman and Tim Drake to take down Harley Quinn, who's seeking revenge for the Joker's death. Replaying the campaign, I found it a bit unnecessary. Back in the day, playing as a new character outside from the challenge maps was exciting, but after replaying the DLC, it didn't provide much in terms of story. We see that Batman has become a bit different since the Joker's death, but not enough context is placed. Batman still acts like Batman, and while other characters notice there's something different, it's very hard to notice it as a player. The original ending was much more exciting and it provided more reason to be excited for the next game, but with the DLC it served more as just an opportunity to play as a different character than actually extending the game's narrative. Rocksteady would start to develop the final game in the trilogy while other developers worked on a prequel, Batman Arkham Origins. Batman Arkham Origins serves as a prequel, with Bruce only having 2 years worth of experience as Batman. Only known as a legend among the populace, the criminal underworld knows that he's real. Black Mask has placed a $50 million bounty on Batman's head, and several deadly assassins have taken the offer. Arkham Origins takes elements from Arkham City, where a semi-open world and locations players will find familiar from Arkham City, since it takes place in the same area before Arkham City was constructed. Batman is still a novice compared to his veteran counterpart in the previous games, and it shows, with Batman being more forceful and aggressive in his interrogation techniques and a little more or less surgical in how he deconstructs a person's fear and capitalizes on it. I never played Arkham Origins and just recently completed the game after finishing the original Rocksteady trilogy. It definitely has its own feel, especially in the cutscenes. Unlike Rocksteady's games, Origins cutscenes are much better. The cinematography is the best in the series, definitely highlighting the dark atmosphere and ruthless nature of both Batman and his enemies. The character models in particular look amazing, and the choreography of the cutscenes were better than anything I saw in the Rocksteady trilogy. It's also in Origins that we get a better understanding of Alfred and Batman's relationship. Alfred was usually isolated to the background despite being Bruce's closest family. Here, Alfred finally gets some well-deserved time as he expresses his worry for Bruce's safety and eventually understands why Batman is needed.
Alfred, who do you see when you look at me? The boy whose shoes you used to tie every morning? The teenager you drove to his first date? While you are here every night, I am out there. The only thing between the innocent and the predator. Be. No, not may be. I am. When the mugger or the thief stops to think twice, that is fear. That is what I am. That is why they hired assassins, because I am the reason the criminals breathe easier when the sun rises. So no, Alfred, I am not in over my head. Tonight will be my end, but it will be theirs.
The story isn't the best, but it serves its purpose, with Batman learning from his mistakes, introducing the Joker, a newcomer to the criminal underworld. We also eventually learn that Joker has taken over Black Mask's operation and hired the assassins to kill Batman. We also get to see Joker's backstory, well, at least one of them, where he fell into a vat of chemicals and to turn into the person we now see. But this is not to be taken as truth, as Arkham City establishes that Joker has a variety of origin stories when he was talking to Hugo Strange, stating that he has multiple stories in which he expresses his origin.
My skin, my entire body felt like it was on fire. It was all his fault.
Whose fault? Batman's.
Who else?
Yours?
Come again?
Let me tell you what I believe. I believe that you have fabricated a series of events that you use to conceal the truth about your condition. I've read 12 different accounts of your past. All different, except for one detail. Batman.
What can I say? I like to keep things interesting. A wise man once told me that if you have to have an origin story, you're better off making it multiple choice.
And never facing up to the truth of what happened. What you did. How you got here.
Oh, I know exactly how I got here. A big truck brought me here from Arkham. You remember the Asylum, don't you?
Of course.
Good. Because I'd hate to think that I'd fabricated seeing you watching me in my cell all those times.
Excuse me.
Hugo, you merry
One by one, Batman takes down each of the assassins in fantastic boss battles. Like the cutscenes, the boss fights in Arkham Origins are way better than any of the boss encounters in Rocksteady's trilogies. There were weak fights such as the one against Deadshot, which is just a Predator challenge, but the fights against Slade and Copperhead tower above anything in the Rocksteady trilogy, with one-on-one fights that test your combat skills instead of a horde battle or a modified version of existing enemies. I did find it strange that some of these assassin fights are optional, such as Deadshot, who you can take on after completing the core campaign for some reason, despite Joker being locked away and no bounty to claim. As I stated, this was my first time playing Arkham Origins and I felt misled. The official trailer showed that the assassins were competing with one another with Deadshot shooting Slade's blade, but that's not the case in the actual game. Instead, it's made very clear they're all working together. Having the assassins fight each other while also hunting down Batman would have made it for a much more interesting experience. Also, despite Slade being the major focus in the trailer, he serves as the second major boss encounter, then is pushed into the background, only appearing in 2 additional scenes. He's also the hardest of all the boss encounters, which is also odd. I don't get why you would prop up Slade as being a prominent figure within the game's trailer, only to dash him aside. That being said, Arkham Origins did have some severe issues. First off was the optional objectives. Much of the game focused on tedious busy work ranging from Riddler challenges to capturing prisoners. Here the Riddler was simply known as Enigma and collecting information to blackmail people. The execution of these collectibles is poor to say the least. While I've complained these Riddler challenges were tedious, most often they included clever puzzles that took advantage of Batman's skills and gadgets. Here that's not the case. Heck, some of these Enigma boxes are literally out in the open, like the developers just dumped them anywhere. Which is ironic considering that the interrogation dialogue gathered by Enigma's henchmen is all unique. It also doesn't build up to anything. You collect all the boxes and destroy all the network relays and then it just ends. He goes into hiding and that's really much it. Next is the open world. Arkham City's open world allowed for easy traveling from point A to point B. Using the gliding technique, you could easily travel from one part of the city to the next with ease. That is not the case in Arkham Origins. The grapple reach is limited and for some reason has specific areas where Batman cannot grapple onto a specific surface. This is especially problematic on the bridge. When gliding from location to location, you feel extremely restrictive. For example, the gliding is very slow and trying to gain momentum is very hard. The grapple boost also dashes you into the air with very limited momentum, so gaining any type of speed is almost impossible. Despite these issues, Batman Arkham Origins did do some things to stand out. The boss encounters in particular are well crafted and the cutscenes are extremely well done to give Batman Arkham Origins its own identity, with a new Batman struggling to take on these deadly people that Rocksteady's Batman would easily have taken down, leading to an epic conclusion where Batman's convictions are tested, where he's put into a no-win situation where someone is going to die, either Joker, Bane, or himself. Using clever problem solving and his gadgets, Batman is able to defeat the Joker and come out on top with his convictions intact, allowing Batman to also establish a relationship with Captain Gordon, who will eventually become Commissioner Gordon and then eventually Mayor Gordon. Either way, Batman Arkham Origins did succeed in creating its own narrative and strong identity. Despite taking me a while to play this game, I'm thankful I did. It doesn't have the best open world and the optional tasks are extremely tedious, but the cutscenes and execution of the overall game was really well done. I especially love the ending, the choreography, the setting, the way it's just Batman beating living crap out of Joker. It all comes together for this incredible ending that conveys the relationship between Batman and Joker. Joker wanting nothing more than to push Batman to start killing, and Batman trying to resist the urge to kill Joker and show that he is above that.
Me, you must know that I'm a lost cause, but there's still hope for you. Yes, I've got great hopes for you. So come on, do stop now. What are you waiting for?
Now, Batman Arkham Origins did come with a multiplayer component to the game. Unfortunately, I was unable to access the multiplayer portion. I tried both on my Xbox 360 and my Xbox One. WB did shut down the servers years ago, but I assumed I could still get a private match in, but I had no luck. Maybe my disc was corrupted or something, but I've had no luck with it. I assumed that it may be working on Steam, but no one I talked to would respond to me about whether it was still active or not. Either way, it's something I couldn't experience, so I can't really tell you how it is. So I've had mostly positive things to say about the Batman Arkham series. Yes, there were issues that I have addressed that I had with the series, but for the most part, it's one of my favorite series. But there are games that I absolutely hated. Games that I just recently played from the Batman Arkham series and can never recommend to anyone. Let's start with the first one, Batman Arkham Origins, Blackgate. Oh my god, I hated this game. So much so that I didn't even purchase it. I actually went over a friend's house to play it and found it completely boring and one of the worst games I've ever played. Maybe it's because I have high expectations for the Batman Arkham series, but this game completely destroyed my desire to even finish the game. I didn't even record gameplay footage for it. Here are some images I got from Steam. Basically, the gameplay from the original Arkham games that were released on console and PC. Well, this game also came out on console and PC, but you know what I mean, the ones that are based off Arkham Asylum. It did not translate well, and it was a linear experience. The combat was stale. The Predator sections were boring as heck. I cannot recommend this game. Just go read about the summary on Wikipedia because I'm not wasting my time with this title. If you think differently, that's your opinion, but I hated this game. I couldn't even finish it. Next up is Batman Arkham VR. I know this came out after Arkham Knight, but I'm going to save that game for last. This one was different. Again, I couldn't figure out a way to record the gameplay with my Elgato and the PlayStation 4 VR, so I only got screenshots for this, but it served more like a bunch of just time trials. I get there was a story there, but for the most part, this served more like a tech demo to me to what the PSVR can do. For a Batman Arkham game, I was incredibly bored with this, and just like Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate, I couldn't even finish this game because I was just so bored. I had to power through most of the game. Eventually, I just gave up and read the summary on Wikipedia, and even then, the narrative is pretty stale. Basically, nothing in this game matters. It's just the hallucination caused on by the Joker's blood before Batman started to really hallucinate in Arkham Knight, so technically it's a prequel to Arkham Knight, but overall it's just like an interesting tech demo if you want to see what the PlayStation VR was capable of. But now there are actually really good PlayStation VR games out there, so go pick up one of those. You don't want to waste your time with this. Now let's talk about the finale, Batman Arkham Knight. Rocksteady didn't pull any punches with Arkham Knight. The game earns its M rating with brutal deaths and deadly villains. Scarecrow has forced an evacuation of Gotham by releasing a small dose of his new fear gas and is threatened to release more. The opening scene for Batman Arkham Knight is absolutely stellar, especially after you complete the game. You see all these little Easter eggs everywhere. You get to see that there are missing posters for the characters that will later be introduced. Characters wearing masks, which hints heavily that Scarecrow's already informed everyone about what's about to happen, at least the criminal underworld, and especially the character that we're going to talk to at the booth. A lot of people have told me that this is Jason Todd, but I'm not really sure. I mean, he is carving a J into the table, but I'm still unsure. But what it opens up is just this incredibly graphic scene where everyone is completely lost their mind because of the fear gas, killing, beating each other to death. And you actually do have an option here. You can choose to fire your gun and start killing people as well, or you could choose to not shoot your gun. And later on in the game, a couple of cops will comment on the situation, stating they don't know how he got out of there if he didn't shoot his gun, or if he killed a bunch of people, and if he's gonna get to keep his job. Batman is quickly called in to help to maintain order as the city streets are now flooded with criminals and Scarecrow's hired mercenaries. When replaying this game, I did notice something very strange, is that they just dump you into Gotham. They don't give you a tutorial or slowly introduce the mechanics like in the other Batman Arkham games. For example, one of the first techniques you have to learn in order to get to the signal that's being displayed on screen is the glide ability, which I doubt a lot of players know about unless you played Arkham City or Arkham Origins. And it seems a little strange. For me, it was just second nature, but for someone who just starts playing Arkham Knight, this may be a little difficult, especially considering how far the police department is. You do have to use the gliding ability to get there, and you don't have access to the Batmobile, which means you can't drive there. And it just seems like a very strange thing to start off, but maybe Rocksteady was more aware that more players who played the original Arkham games will be aware of this technique, or maybe they just had confidence that players will be able to figure this out immediately. But one of the best features, and also one of the more annoying features, is that after years of teasing players, we finally get the chance to drive the Batmobile. But it also quickly loses its luster. Batman begins his journey rescuing Poison Ivy from Scarecrow, and let's take a minute to analyze Poison Ivy's new design. Before, she had a more cartoonish design. Her hair was extremely red and it looked a lot like roses, but in this game she took on a much more human look. Like, Rocksteady was going for a more realistic look for this game, and it definitely works for this title. I mean, everything looks so gritty, dark, and very mature, and I loved it. Batman's able to take Poison Ivy into custody. I'm not really sure why she gave up without a fight, but it's most likely because Scarecrow runs the streets with his militia, which we find out he has a bunch of unarmed tanks and something of a secret commander that we'll find out more about later. With the help of Oracle and Lucius, Batman's able to find Scarecrow's location, but it's also here that we finally see what the Batmobile is going to be for the rest of the game. A giant hunk of metal that you have to escort throughout the game, and it completely destroys the thrill of driving one of the most iconic vehicles in all of DC and turning it into a giant escort machine. But not everything is terrible. You get a brand new Batman suit that allows you to perform one of the coolest techniques in all of Batman Arkham, the Fear Takedown, where you literally take down enemies within a blink of an eye. It is one of the most entertaining and badass moves in the entire series. When heading to Ace Chemicals, we encounter the new antagonist, the Arkham Knight, and his identity turns out to be one of the biggest plot points within Arkham Knight, and one of the biggest letdowns. If you have a minimum amount of knowledge about the Batman universe, you were able to predict who the Arkham Knight is. I mean, heck, years before this game was released, everyone correctly predicted who the Arkham Knight is, and it's kind of insulting that Batman was unable to do the same. Regardless, the Arkham Knight is a legitimate threat to Batman. He knows all his techniques, weaknesses, and most importantly, he commands an army that can literally take over a country. But worst of all, he's taking orders from Scarecrow, who wants nothing more than to destroy everything in Gotham, including the Batman.
No. I'm just trying to decide which one of you I'm going to take out first.
Just so we're both on the same page here, I fully intend to kill you.
Of course, Batman's primary target is still Scarecrow, so you spend most of the time in this section of the game just slowly escorting the Batmobile throughout Ace Chemicals, and I mean, it is extremely annoying how much you have to escort this once incredible machine within the DC universe. It just hurts me profoundly that they turned it into this. But nevertheless, you escort the Batmobile, destroy a large amount of unmanned tanks, another thing you'll be doing a lot in this game, rescue the Ace Chemical workers, and then eventually you encounter Scarecrow. Scarecrow, being extremely cocky, thinks he's already won. Not only has he set the coordinates, but he has enough fear toxin to cover all of Gotham and the surrounding coast, and that was his plan entirely, to give himself more time so he can release the toxin. Batman decides that the only way to stop this from happening is to sacrifice his own life, mitigating the explosion so it can only affect a certain part of Gotham. This is one of the best scenes throughout Arkham Knight because it shows that Batman is fully committed to dying if it means it could save Gotham, and it plays this incredible musical track which I cannot play. It's called Inner Demons, and it's one of the most iconic soundtracks within the Batman Arkham universe. And unfortunately, I cannot play it, even though it makes the scene so incredibly profound, because WMG has been claiming every one of these Batman soundtracks. Regardless, it is one of the best scenes in the game as you see Batman slowly carry the canisters into the slots, only hoping to mitigate the explosion, not to stop it, but to reduce it. But things always go from bad to worse in Batman's situations, and because he was exposed to the tear gas, another unknown infection starts to spread throughout his body that he was aware of, but the player was not. Joker appears, and we finally get context to why he's here and what's happening. Flashing back to the events before Arkham Knight, we see that Commissioner Gordon has been invited to an old film studio by Batman to something he's unaware of. But when we get down there, we see something has terribly happened. The Joker infection has evolved. What before was killing Joker has now become its own infection. Those who were infected with Joker's blood through undocumented transfusions are turning into Joker. I assume that Batman gave them the cure, but it did nothing, and now they're slowly turning into Joker. Christina Bell is a former investor who embodies her Joker's obsession over Batman. Johnny Charisma is a singer who embodies Joker's ego, and the Goliath is a professional fighter who embodies Joker's bloodlust. The only one who was infected with Joker's blood but seems to be immune to the infection is someone named Henry, who Robin and Batman have kidnapped and now are performing tests on. We later find out that Batman is also infected with this disease despite consuming the cure, and he will turn into one of them. And if Batman becomes Joker, well, that will be very, very bad for not only Gotham but the entire world. Returning to present day, we finally figure out that the reason the infection has finally shown its symptoms was because of Scarecrow's fear toxin. For some reason, it's accelerating the process and Joker is becoming more powerful. In fact, if you look at his skin, he looks very weakened, like when he was infected with the Titan before he was killed. But as the game continues, his face becomes much more clearer until eventually he returns to his original look when he was in Arkham Asylum. And this of course adds another layer of tension within Batman's journey. On top of having to stop Scarecrow, figuring out the Arkham Knight's identity, now he has to deal with the fact that he's slowly turning into Joker, and every time he gets hit with another dose of that fear toxin, the process will only accelerate until eventually he becomes one of the greatest threats to the world. And things get even worse. The Arkham Knight uses his knowledge about Batman in order to capture Oracle, and guess what? Batman has to tell Gordon, who goes on a rampage in order to find where his daughter is, and even loses faith in Batman because she was working for him and he had no knowledge of it. And Joker is toying with Batman by forcing him to relive horrible memories about his past, such as when he crippled Oracle, one of the most iconic events that happened in The Killing Joke, one of the best graphic novels ever made. Without Gordon's trust or support, Batman is more determined than ever to find Oracle. In doing so, he has to weaken the Arkham Knight's hold on Gotham while at the same time tracking her location. Unfortunately, another one of Batman's allies is captured, this time by the Riddler. The Riddler has captured Catwoman and put an explosive collar around her neck. If Batman fails to solve his riddles or fails in his various challenges, Catwoman will die. Just like in Arkham City, the stakes are really high with lives at stake. And another problem that Batman will have to deal with eventually. Unfortunately, the Riddler challenges in Arkham Knight are probably one of the most time-consuming activities within the entire series. Heck, the Riddler challenges within Arkham Knight take longer than the core campaign and all the side missions put together. I've actually timed it. But Rocksteady has included more varied in the mission structure. For example, there are racing time trials that you can take part in, and most importantly, you have these great little activities that you can take part with Catwoman, such as combat challenges, puzzles. It's really rewarding to see Batman and Catwoman work together. Unfortunately, she's not the only one Batman works together with. He also works with Nightwing and Robin for some incredible encounters, but you still have to dedicate 100% of your time to get all the challenges and complete them all. You can't just do it halfway, you have to get them all, but the reward is an epic boss battle against Riddler. It's not like a simple takedown like in Arkham City, or he just goes into hiding like in Arkham Origins. It's an actual boss fight and it's pretty cool. But most importantly, you also get this touching goodbye between Batman and Selina. Batman realizing that the infection could take him over by the end of the night, or that he will die by some other means that he's actually saying goodbye to her in some manner, but Selina won't have it. It's kind of a callback to the Arkham City tapes where she was interviewed by Hugo Strange, in which he dives deeper into her psyche, realizing that she does indeed love Batman, but because of her hateful aggression towards men because of her father leaving, she doesn't open up to him. But in this situation, she actually does and makes the effort to show that she does care about him.
Play nice.
You're not playing at all.
No, I'm not. Not anymore.
And what's that supposed to mean?
It means this is the end, Selina. It means we can't. legend more powerful than I can be right now. A legend that can only rise from the ashes of the Batman.
Some things you can't do alone, Bruce.
And some things you have to.
Call if you need me.
I won't.
I know. I just wanted to say it.
But of course, this is an optional mission, and depending on when you complete it is completely up to you. But if you do complete it while Joker's infection is still within Batman's body, you actually get some interesting dialogue between Joker as he taunts Batman, telling him how he actually slept with Talia in hell, and a lot of other things. He also comments on Nigma, saying that he doesn't need psychological help, just lock him in prison and never allow him to come to terms with all his psychological problems.
Good for you, Bat. Eddie doesn't need psychiatric help. No. Beat him up, lock him up. That's the best medicine.
Unless you commit yourself to the various side objectives within Arkham Knight, the core campaign has you locate an Oracle in this part of the game. The Arkham Knight's driver happens to get pepper sprayed in the face by Oracle. Why they didn't take that away from her is strange to me, but she's successful in her objective to try and leave evidence for Batman so he can track their location and eventually find out where the Arkham Knight is hiding.
Data, so I can pinpoint the Arkham Knight's location.
This kind of thing was more Miss Gordon's specialty. I'll see what I can do.
Using Wayne Enterprises' resources, Batman's able to track the Arkham Knight's location. It's also inside his office that we get some more insight into Bruce's life, such as his relationship with Vicky Vale, that he may be dating some supermodels, but most importantly his connection to the Superman universe, where LexCorp is trying to purchase his Applied Science division. You know, the division where they develop all of Batman's technology? Yeah, I don't think that Superman game is going to happen, but I can be hopeful, can't I? Of course, the Arkham Knight is 2 steps ahead of Batman and knows what he was about to do. Not only is he able to successfully ambush Batman, but he's able to pierce his armor, knowing exactly where to shoot. And knowing exactly how Batman is tracking him, instead sends a decoy his way. But the militia isn't that loyal to the Arkham Knight, especially when you have a tank about to crush your skull. So Batman learns that Penguin has been ferrying guns to the Arkham Knight's men as well as the criminals, and calls on Nightwing's help in order to take down the Penguin and learn more information about where the Arkham Knight is hiding. And just like with Catwoman, you have this incredible combat challenge where you work together with Nightwing, switching between the characters, doing dual takedowns. It's not as elaborate as the missions with Catwoman, but it's still fun nevertheless.
Can't let any of these weapons get onto the street. This cat.
Just like the end of the Riddler missions, the side objectives dealing with the Penguin serve as one final goodbye to Nightwing, with Batman offering his absolute respect to the young hero, stating that he knows he'll be successful and to keep Bloodhaven safe. Despite Nightwing becoming careless and getting captured by the Penguin, heck, there's even a situation where you can let him die, but Batman doesn't scold Nightwing as he expects him to do. Instead, Batman says it in his own way that he's proud of him and he knows he'll keep Bloodhaven safe. Nightwing, not knowing what Batman is up to, he doesn't even believe Batman is going to die. He never tells Nightwing about the infection and what's happening in his own campaign. But nevertheless, it's a very beautiful moment, like a father-son conversation. Both of them just going in their own way, Nightwing being cocky, but Batman saying that he's proud of him in his own way.
I won't let you down.
I know.
It's on the airship that we see that the entire facility has been overrun with Tiger Guards, and it turns out that Simon Stagg has been working with Scarecrow, developing the toxin as a type of bioweapon, but Scarecrow just wanted it as a way to destroy Batman. He tried to cut Scarecrow out, and of course that ended badly, with him sending the hired mercenaries in order to steal a powerful weapon called the Cloudburst, which will allow him to spread the toxin throughout Gotham. But it's also here that the Joker infection starts to take hold, with Batman starting to hallucinate Joker even more vividly than before, even feeling him punch him in the face. Of course, Joker's hallucinations get worse when Batman finally reaches Scarecrow's location. Here, Joker creates two illusions of Scarecrow. It doesn't matter which one you pick, you're gonna be wrong each time. And of course, Scarecrow hits you with another dose of fear toxin, which allows Joker to take temporary control of Batman's body. And here is one of the more graphic scenes in the game, where Batman literally beats the crap out of the Tiger Guards, but in a way that makes them beg for mercy, showing that Joker is not holding back, that he has the full strength of Batman, and he's gonna cause carnage. And this is just the first taste of what could happen if Batman doesn't find himself a cure. But most importantly, it shows that Batman has been holding back this entire time. Joker doesn't hold back, and because of that, well, the Tiger Guards now know what they're up against.
Look at me. I'm amazing. And this body. I can't believe how strong it is.
Such brutality.
However, Joker knows this is temporary, and in order to gain full control, he has to convince Batman to kill. Batman is able to resist this and return back to normal, but he also loses, as Scarecrow is able to escape with the Cloudburst. But things even get worse when he finally finds Barbara, and Barbara, now completely intoxicated by the fear gas, sees Batman as a monster and then commits suicide before Batman's eyes. Joker, taking advantage of the situation, tries to convince Batman to let him take full control in a way to avoid pain. But thanks to Alfred convincing Batman to continue to move on, he starts to think clearly, realizing that Poison Ivy was immune to the fear toxin and she may hold the keys to a cure. I love all these mental stresses that are constantly being placed onto Batman. He has to deal with the deaths of so many of his allies, or the potential deaths of some of his allies. He's constantly trying to protect them, and you can see that his mental fortitude is slowly decaying. He has to find the will to move on, to try and save Gotham from Scarecrow, because if he doesn't, no one else can. Fortunately, Batman's able to convince Ivy to help him in exchange for saving all the plants in Gotham. Of course, Ivy doesn't care about the humans, she just cares about the plant life, which goes in hand, because if Scarecrow's toxin ends up spreading throughout Gotham, all the plants will die. Batman learns that Ivy was able to create a spore to counteract the toxin, and the only way to spread it throughout Gotham is to reawaken ancient trees buried deep within Gotham. Of course, the Arkham Knight isn't having any of this and deploys a brand new Cobra tank that can only be destroyed from the back because, you know, why not? It's just another thing you have to destroy. So you just go, stay behind it, scan it, then you go and blow it up with the Batmobile. After destroying a dozen more tanks, you head to the oldest tree in Gotham. Ivy agrees to assist you in resurrecting the old trees, and with the help of Lucius, you're able to find the roots and reawaken the tree. Of course, the Arkham Knight isn't having any of this, and he knows there's something wrong, so he tries to blow up the tree, you stop him, then he gets even more pissed off and keeps saying, "I know you, Batman, I know what you're going to think and what you're going to do." Seriously, the amount of times he says that becomes white noise eventually. Batman decides to use the intelligence that he's gathered on the Arkham Knight and head back to the movie studio in hopes of tracking him down once again. It's here that we see that Tim Drake is preoccupied with trying to discover a cure to the Joker infection. He doesn't tell him that he's also infected. Worse, he doesn't tell him about Barbara being dead because he knows he'll go on a rampage if he happened to find out. And of course, Joker is there to mock Batman every step of the way. We also get a chance to finally interact with the infected and how they react to Batman. Each one of them is infatuated with the Batman in different ways, and it's kinda unnerving, but freaking awesome. I mean, talking to Christina Bell and her love-hate relationship with Batman, how Johnny Charisma just wants to serenade him, and how the Goliath wants to punch him into the ground until he's nothing more than a bloody mess. It's amazing, and the writing is really well done. Batman decides to go on the warpath and destroy the Arkham Knight's various control towers and hold on Gotham. It's actually a pretty good opportunity to stretch out the Predator skills and combat abilities, because the militia is no joke. They have new tactics that they take advantage of, such as an electrical barrier that prevents Batman from attacking them unless he uses the grapple hook, the ability for medics to revive one another, brutes that can use blades and shields, and of course Batman has a few new tools in his disposal. He can now attack enemies that are on the ground, his beatdown is a lot quicker, and he has new gadgets that he can take advantage of, such as the Cryptograptor's ability to hack into drones and use them against other enemies. It's pretty cool. Environmental takedowns that take out enemies in one hit, and the ability to grab melee weapons to increase his melee power. It's all necessary because, like I stated, the militia have their numbers and they're very vast. It's clear that Rocksteady went for quantity in this game, and you really have to micromanage every enemy type during these encounters. And yes, things take for another turn for the worse. Harley Quinn has found out about the infected, and of course, she wants them for herself. She's still infatuated with the Joker, and she's now broken into the television studio, so Batman has to head back and try and round up the infected before they can escape. It's also here where you get one of the more entertaining devices, the voice synthesizer, which allows you to trick the henchmen into going to specific locations. It can be a bit overpowered, but eventually they become wise to the device and you can't use it as effectively. But it's a very cool device, and I really like tricking the henchmen into doing things or separating from their allies. Here where you get to team up with Tim Drake, traditional Batman and Robin escapades. Here you have to take down Christina Bell, Johnny Charisma, and the Goliath. And in true Rocksteady fashion, the boss battles are wasted opportunities. Christina Bell is just a Predator challenge, but it's pretty cool that you get to use both Batman and Robin. It does make it a bit easier, but at the same time, it's a lot more entertaining because you get to play as Robin with Batman and do these cool takedown techniques. But then you fight Christina Bell and you just have to counter her at the same time. But even if you fail, you still grab her.
Let's get her back in the cell.
While all this is happening, Joker decides this is the perfect opportunity to destroy Batman's psyche even further by making him relive the time he failed Jason Todd, the previous Robin before Tim Drake. This is an extremely graphic scene as you see that Jason clings on to the hope that Batman will come and save him, but Joker continuously bashes Jason Todd both physically and mentally, showing him photos that Batman has moved on, that Batman isn't coming, eventually crippling Jason Todd's will, till he becomes nothing more than a husk of his former self and hates Batman with a great passion to the point, well, let's just face it, we all know who the Arkham Knight is by now. And the major problem I had with this is that Batman didn't figure it out by, these visions. I mean, it's clear that he should have figured out, hey, Jason's the only one who would know about him, all his techniques, and his weaknesses, so maybe he's not dead, but it also can lean the other way, that Batman simply refuses to accept that the Arkham Knight is Jason Todd, which is also an acceptable answer, but considering that the film, The Red Hood, showed that Batman was able to figure it out and accept it, kinda contradicts this entire notion. So I don't know, it just seems really weird that Batman wouldn't put 2 and 2 together. Thankfully, Rocksteady decided to actually put some more effort to Johnny Charisma's boss fight, instead of just being a Predator challenge. Well, it is a variation of a Predator challenge, so I should probably take that back. But it's a really cool Predator challenge. You take control of Robin as you disarm bombs, but also Joker sings this incredible song as he taunts Batman and says how he let him die and all these things. It's a fully realized and featured song, so you can listen to the whole thing over and over. And I actually did listen to the whole song, and it's both well written and well sung, so Johnny really did a good job, but technically it's Joker who's singing in a hallucination, but it's still well done, and I really enjoyed this fight against Johnny Charisma above the Goliath and Christina Bell.
And he's a professional singer? Even Alfred sings better than this guy.
Final fight against the Goliath is just your basic combat challenge, just power up your dual takedown and then take down the Goliath. I find it a bit strange seeing that Batman and Robin are these expert fighters and they couldn't just take down the Goliath pretty easy, but I guess they did have to make it a bit of a challenge. But nevertheless, it's your simple combat challenge, avoid the Goliath's hits, charge up your dual takedown, then beat the Goliath until he's unconscious. Maybe it was just me, but I knew the entire time that Henry was the one who betrayed them. I mean, there was no one else that could have done what happened here, and Harley doesn't really demonstrate the skills to execute such an elaborate infiltration plan. I know Henry's supposed to look as this type of defenseless and completely banal person, but I mean seriously, process of elimination. And it kind of ruins again that Batman couldn't figure this out, but then again it could also be the stress of everything that's happening. I mean, remember, he still has those side objectives, and technically there's the Riddler challenges, the Man-Bat, Azrael, all these things are happening, so maybe Batman's mental fortitude has decayed to the point that his detective skills are being effective. But nevertheless, Henry shows that he is indeed infected with the Joker virus and that he's been killing the infected. He released them as a way to purify the gene pool, which is also something that the Joker hallucination said to Batman when he first visited the movie studio, so there was another hint that this was going to happen. But nevertheless, Henry decides not to kill Batman even though he has the perfect opportunity to do so, because for some reason right at that moment the infection takes hold and his eyes start to turn green, one of the symptoms of Joker taking control. At that point, Henry Joker, which is what I'll refer to him, sees that he would be a better Joker than he is and decides to commit suicide. With all the infected dead, Batman is the only one left, and Tim Drake puts 2 and 2 together. Maybe he is the better detective, even though he hasn't figured out about the whole Barbara situation. But nevertheless, he figures out that he's the last infected, and that he has to go into the cell that he constructed for him, because the infection probably is about to take hold, seeing that his eyes are green. And if he were to fully become a Joker Batman, that not even he would be able to stop him. This is also a situation where Batman's reason and his own, I guess you would say his ego, takes hold. You see, in one situation, Batman agrees to go into the cell and leaves Tim Drake to stop the Scarecrow. I mean, he's been trained by Batman, and Drake believes that he has the skills to do so. Unfortunately, this is not what transpired, as after the final hallucination with Jason Todd, which shows Joker killing Jason before he reveals Batman's identity, we see what really happened. Tim was locked in the cell by Bruce. His communication was cut so Alfred can't help him, and most importantly, he tells Tim about Barbara. At that point, exactly what you would think would happen. Tim goes into a rage and wants to kill Scarecrow, but Batman doesn't allow him, and then Tim, completely infuriated, tells him to leave, and Batman has to leave. It's also here that Batman realizes that there is no cure, there's no hope. He just has to continue forward and stop the Knight and Scarecrow before the night's over and the infection takes hold.
He's dead. I'm sorry. Let me out. I can't. They're targeting everyone close to me. I won't let them get you as well.
Bruce, please. I have to do this.
No.
You son of a bitch! How dare you! You don't get to decide! Get away from me! Go! Hang on a gosh darn minute. If Henry wasn't immune to mad clown disease, then that means there is no cure after all. You had Featherhead slaving away when he could have been saving Barbara.
Batman then resumes his plan to spread the spore in order to stop Scarecrow's toxin from spreading throughout Gotham with Ivy's help. Unfortunately, Scarecrow uses the Cloudburst to infect the entire city with his toxin, destroying the Batmobile's power supply, but at the same time starting to kill Ivy's plants, which are the only hope to save Gotham. I love this scene because you can see all of Gotham covered in the fear toxin, people below gone completely mad, and you can hear the people who are away from the toxin in the high buildings looking down and just wondering what they did. Even the militia look down in horror. It's also here that we see another anti-hero trait of Ivy. She'll do whatever it takes to save her plants, even if it means saving Gotham and the people that she doesn't care about. She sacrifices her energy and her very life in order to sustain the plants that are dying due to the toxic clouds. And if you look back at the Batman Arkham series, Ivy's actually done a lot more good than bad. She's helped Batman on multiple occasions, and it just seems like I would classify her as a anti-hero instead of a true villain. The next section seems a little like busy work as you try and navigate Gotham now that it's covered in this toxic cloud, and head to Simon Stagg's laboratory. It's here where you have to retrieve a Nimbus cell, which is this type of new energy source, in hopes of repairing the Batmobile, because without it, you won't be able to find the next ancient plant in hopes of spreading the spore and dissolving the toxic gas cloud. It's not that challenging. As long as you've mastered the whole gliding and diving technique, it should be more than enough for you to get to the blimp with ease. Also, there are plenty of cranes and tall buildings for you to use to propel Batman forward, so it's again not that much of a challenge. In fact, I found it as an opportunity to destroy those, what were those things called, those drones? I think they're called serpents or something. Either way, I spend more time destroying those things than actually heading to the laboratory, because it also means that a lot of the watchtowers have gone obsolete, or they have less guards for some reason. I don't know if this was intentional, but either way, it's the perfect opportunity to clear out the skies. And Batman, being Batman, decides to take the most dangerous and direct route in hopes of repairing the Batmobile. He dives straight into the toxic cloud, accelerating the process of which the Joker toxin is taking hold of his body. You can see everyone in the streets starting to turn into Joker as he continues to taunt him. Eventually, Batman does repair the Batmobile, but not without doing permanent damage. Joker taunts Batman even further, stating that the infection has reached its pinnacle, and at most, Batman only has a few hours before he takes full control of his body.
Give me a moment, Alfred. I'll be fine.
You're not looking too good, old boy. It won't be long now till I'm behind the wheel. Oh, just think of the fun we'll have then. Brains, brawn, brutality, the full package. We'll have Gotham at our mercy. And you know what the best part is? You'll be there with me every step of the way, watching it all from the passenger seat. I don't know about you, pal, but I can hardly wait.
What follows is another series of Batmobile challenges, including tank battles, some racing trials, and a few escort missions where you have to find ramps in order to get the Batmobile across. A lot of it is a bit annoying, and again aids to the idea of you hating the Batmobile, as it's treated as this giant cinder block attached to your legs. I mean, seriously, by the end of all these trials, you have to fight like 40 of these unmanned drones. I mean, look at this. It's freaking annoying as hell. And then finally, you get to fight the Arkham Knight, and if you were hoping an epic boss encounter, you would be wrong. You should expect better from Rocksteady's games. You get to fight him, but he's in an upgraded Cobra tank. All it does is has a sensor that spins around. You wait for his weak point to be exposed, you shoot him, and you keep doing that until he is completely without armor. Then you just keep shooting him. Eventually he falls, you take him above the clouds, and then he escapes because Batman wasn't freaking paying attention. Stop talking to Alfred. The most dangerous enemy you've encountered is right there. Tie him up. He's going to run away. Despite Batman's success in waking the tree, Ivy used every last bit of her energy to keep the plants alive. She eventually is able to dispense the spores that saves all the trees in Gotham, including the people of Gotham indirectly, but in doing so, dies in the process. Now, it's not clear if the plant that grows from her ashes is going to construct a new Ivy, but I strongly believe they should construct a statue for her or keep the plants alive. They shouldn't touch those plants because they saved the entire city, and not to mention Ivy did sacrifice herself to save the city as well, even if it was just for the plants. Either way, Ivy died an anti-hero in this series, at least from my perspective. As I stated before, she's done more to help Batman than to harm him. But then again, that's just me. Maybe someone might have a much more constructive counter argument to that, but congrats Ivy, you died an anti-hero. I also love the after effect of this. When you go through the city of Gotham after the spores displants, it just has this incredible plant-like feel with all these spores everywhere. It's absolutely stunning. I am playing on the Xbox One X, but I'm pretty sure if you were playing this on PC with high graphics settings, it would look spectacular. But here it looks just as good. It's absolutely beautiful, and I just wish that it stayed a little bit longer, but unfortunately it does dissipate after the next mission, regardless of what you take. If it's a side mission or a main mission, the spores dissipate. But it's beautiful, and I recommend that you take it all in when you complete this section if you decide to play this game, which I do highly recommend. Of course, this is a temporary victory. Batman still has to stop Scarecrow because once the spores dissipate, Scarecrow can release more of his... Gordon has sent an encrypted signal through the SWAT channel and Batman's able to trace it and find the Knight's headquarters. What follows is a huge escort quest as you try and get the Batmobile deep underground while also fighting a series of elite militia troops. You also get the suicide bomber, which is a pretty epic moment where Batman disarms the suicide vest and then takes out all the militia troops. But nevertheless, it is a huge escort mission as you just try and drag the Batmobile underground. So who do you think is waiting for you underground? Is it the Mad Hatter? Is it Clayface? Is it the villain that Batman did not tie up after defeating him and somehow got a giant drill to take him down? The Arkham Knight returns. In this boss fight, all you have to do is lure the Arkham Knight's giant drill through a series of tunnels, 3 specifically, and just perform some basic racing trials like driving on the wall, avoiding obstacles until the Arkham Knight runs into dynamite, which is conveniently placed all around the tunnels, and then finally he reveals that he knows Bruce's secret identity. I mean, seriously, by now, if you don't know who the Arkham Knight is, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, it's been pretty obvious. I've already told you who the Arkham Knight is, but it's just so painfully obvious by now. But of course, Batman doesn't realize who the Arkham Knight is. You abandon the Batmobile and he crushes it into dust. Now you don't have to escort it anymore, yay! But you still lose the Batmobile, so yeah, that's also kind of bad because it is $1 billion car, and of course the Arkham Knight destroyed it, which means we have to get revenge for that. Batman eventually saves Gordon from the Knight's men and finds himself in his HQ. It's here that we get the grand reveal. The Arkham Knight is... wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh my god, it's Jason Todd. Who would have figured that out? I mean, seriously. But yeah, Batman still didn't figure it out and he's in shock, yada yada yada. Joker mocks him more, telling him how he didn't kill him and just completely destroyed his mind and his fortitude to the point all he wants to do is kill Batman because he blames him for what happened, how he never came to rescue him. You can actually see that Jason has been obsessed with not only Batman but Tim Drake, showing that even the Riddler knew who the Arkham Knight is. I mean, come on Batman, it was staring you right in the face. I know I've driven this point so many times, but he is the world's greatest detective. How could you not figure out this was Jason Todd the entire time? What follows is another giant waste of a boss battle. It had so much potential becoming something great, like out of Arkham Origins, but you know what you get? You know what you get? A Predator challenge. That's it. I will say that the writing is strong during this fight as Batman tries to convince Jason that this isn't him and the Joker got to him, that he could help him. With each interaction, Jason becomes more and more reluctant to believe Batman, but he also starts to weaken his desire to kill him. The interaction between the two is similar to Nightwing and Batman. Both of them are just in different odds. Jason still blames Batman, but Batman is going to try and help him, even if it means that he has to die in the process. In the end, Batman comes out on top, and just before he's about to beat him, just like every other criminal Batman has defeated, he stops short. He looks at Jason and sees that he's just a broken kid. Someone that he failed to save. He's just as responsible for what happened to Jason as the Joker is. He never came for him, and it is his fault. And he tries to take responsibility, but he knows he can't. All the hate that Jason has and everything he's done, Batman still wants to help him because in a way Jason is his son. And he wants to do everything he can to save the person he failed to save in the first place. We get more context into the Arkham Knight, or Jason Todd specifically, from the interview tapes, showing that he revealed his identity to Barbara, and Barbara also tried to help him, but all the hate, all the rage that Jason felt, he just wanted to direct that at Batman because of his failure to save him. He also shows that he still cares about Barbara, but he also cares about Alfred as he makes reference to him saying how is he doing and he wants to know if he's okay. So Jason still cares about the people who used to be part of his life, but he has redirected all that rage that the Joker has put into him into Batman. But in these final moments, he realizes that nothing he can do, killing Batman, it won't solve anything, and that's the end of the Arkham Knight. But of course this victory is short-lived. Gordon knows where the Scarecrow is, and Gordon and Batman head to the roof to confront the Mad scientist, basically. I mean, he is technically a mad scientist. He is a doctor after all. But nevertheless, we also find out that Gordon knows who Batman is. It's unclear if whether Batman told him or Gordon figured it out, but I'm not really sure. Either way, they just put it out there. Gordon knows who Batman is. We head up to the roof and we see that Barbara is still alive. Apparently, Scarecrow's toxin affected Batman to the point that he saw Barbara kill herself. Or it could be that Joker was also playing with him, but nevertheless, Barbara is still alive, and in exchange for her safety, Gordon agreed to give Scarecrow Batman. But Gordon, being the sly person that he is, actually played a double agent here. He did agree to give Batman up, but he shot him in the most powerful part of his armor, allowing him to come back and save Barbara while he got captured by Scarecrow.
Are you hurt?
I thought Dad killed you.
He knew what he was doing.
The next hour of the main campaign is actually pretty bland. Basically, you just fight a bunch of unmanned tanks with the newly constructed Batmobile, which has all the upgrades that you had the option of choosing. So whatever upgrades you didn't pick are now in this new Batmobile. You reconnect the system from your original clock tower home base into the police department so Oracle can track where Scarecrow is. Then you engage in another huge battle against a bunch of unmanned tanks to defend the police department. Then it ends with you locating where Scarecrow is, but the only way you could locate him was because he was able to kidnap Tim Drake because Batman locked him away in the cell. You head back and see that in order for you to rescue Drake and Gordon, you have to give yourself up to Scarecrow. It's here where Batman has to make the critical choice to give himself up in order to save the people he cares about most. It's also here where you can complete all these side objectives, which I highly recommend that you do, because Joker has unique dialogue for every person that you capture, with the exception of the optional dialogue that includes Ra's al Ghul, the Mad Hatter, Mr. Freeze, and Killer Croc. Well, technically you don't capture Mr. Freeze, he actually goes off on his own, and he has the best DLC mission of the entire game. But anyway, I do recommend that you complete everything before doing the final mission, but you can complete the final mission after you complete the mission with Scarecrow and the core campaign. Batman decides to give himself up, and in doing so, he also opens himself to the final phase of infection. Joker, unwilling to go any further, decides to put Batman through the most difficult mental journey of his life, reliving his dead parents. It's here where Joker tries everything he can to cause Batman to give in, and in a way he does. This battle is incredibly profound because you see Batman trying to hold back. He starts off using basic takedowns, but as the fight continues, he starts to use more and more violent takedowns, using more lethal moves that Batman would never use, leading up to the moment where Batman finally snaps and literally breaks the Joker's neck.
You know you want to. So you finally lost it, finally snapped my neck. No denying it this time. You've got the mind of a killer, and that mind is mine. It's over, Bruce. You crossed the blood-red line, and now Scarecrow will set me free.
In the final moments of the game, Batman is unmasked by Commissioner Gordon by force of the Scarecrow, and his identity is shown to the world. The Batman is shown to be Bruce Wayne, and it's at this moment Scarecrow decides to inject him with one last dose of fear toxin, completing the infection and showing that Joker is now in control. In doing so, what follows is this type of mental foresight, because what's happening isn't actually what's happening in real life. We see Batman's villains and all these henchmen, but we also see that he's talking to someone that seems to be Batman, but is in actuality the Joker. This is Joker taking full control of Batman's mind, killing everyone inside his mind. The henchmen, I don't know what they represent, but Joker just goes on a full-out rampage, using his own version of the Batmobile and just laying waste to everyone using the killing joke. What follows is him killing Penguin. Well, you have a choice whether you want to kill Penguin or not. Then you kill the Riddler. Then you kill innocent cop if you choose to do so or not. I'm pretty sure she has a name, but I don't even remember. And the last person Joker kills is Two-Face and Commissioner Gordon. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to mean, but I guess it's because Two-Face used to be the White Knight of Gotham before he became Two-Face, but the fact that he kills Commissioner Gordon shows that the transformation is complete. You then see that Gotham is on fire, and Alfred is pleading with Bruce, but not realizing that Joker is in full control. Batman is gone and only Joker remains. But in an unlikely turn of events, while Joker is in control of Bruce's body, he starts to laugh uncontrollably, and Scarecrow injects him with another dose of fear toxin, which of course causes Joker to live out his worst fear. I find this incredibly fascinating because Batman was able to turn Joker's worst fear within a matter of seconds. Like, he's able to take full control of his mind and then trap Joker into the deepest sections of his own mind. You see Joker slowly becoming forgotten as his worst fear comes to life. Harley has moved on. The person who was most infatuated with Joker ends up being with the Riddler. No one remembers him being Batman's greatest villain. And in the final moments, you can see that Joker is actually afraid. And then Batman finally appears, telling him that he will be forgotten by him as he just creeps closer, eventually grabbing Joker, locking him into a cell, and pushing him deeper into his mind where he'll be lost forever. This raises a lot of questions, to be honest. Like, is the Joker infection completely mental? Could you just will it out of existence? Or was the fear toxin critical to the cure? Either way, Batman somehow is able to beat off the infection, and in doing so also becomes immune to Scarecrow's fear toxin. But Scarecrow, not having it and being a sore loser, tries to kill Batman there and now, but of course Jason Todd comes to the rescue. This I did not see coming. He comes and saves Bruce, donning the new persona of the Red Hood, and then finally Bruce is able to conquer Scarecrow, giving him a taste of his own medicine before taking him down permanently. But the damage is done. Bruce's identity is revealed to the world, and his closest allies and friends could be in danger, as everyone will now target anyone related to Bruce Wayne's inner circle. Because of this, Batman sees no other option but to execute his contingency plan. Called Nightfall, you can only execute the plan after you reach 100% completion. This means completing every side objective, including all the Riddler challenges. But as I stated before, I did recommend that players do it before Joker is removed from your system, as it has a lot of great dialogue once you capture them all. But once you complete everything 100%, you can execute Nightfall and see the true ending of the game. Following Nightfall, Batman has completely disappeared and everyone assumes that he's dead. Gordon, who is now mayor of Gotham, is trying to keep the streets clean and is recounting the tales of the Batman. We then see a family similar to Bruce's, wealthy and about to go down a dark alley, which, I mean, who wouldn't go down a dark alley in the middle of the night while wearing expensive jewelry and clothes? But nevertheless, they're walking down the alley and about to be mugged and killed when a figure that looks like Batman appears, donning this type of supernatural look with lots of smoke and fire before attacking the muggers. And then we have this heavy hint that a new Batman game would be coming, but of course nothing has transpired in the 4 years that followed this game. There of course has been DLC that takes place before and after the events of Batman Arkham Knight. There are 2 prequel campaigns and 4 post-launch campaigns. The prequel campaign star Harley Quinn and Barbara Gordon. The first one with Harley Quinn stars before the events of Arkham Knight, where Harley Quinn is charged with breaking out Poison Ivy out of Blackgate in order to aid Scarecrow. We of course know how that goes in the actual game. But nevertheless, it also shows as a genuine, authentic example of what goes on in Harley Quinn's mind. We see that Dr. Quinzel and Harley Quinn are constantly battling for control of the body. She's trying to convince her that she should leave this way of life, because with Joker dead, they can return to becoming a psychiatrist and their normal life. But of course, Harley Quinn isn't having it. She's trapped in her own existence and loves being a criminal. Barbara Gordon's campaign takes place before the events of Arkham Asylum, before she became a paraplegic. This is when she and Tim Drake take down Joker and Harley Quinn. Interestingly, they even used the original costume where Harley Quinn debuted in the animated series, so it's kind of a cool nod. You explore the Joker's park, or one of his parks, as you take him down, and as Joker tries to convince Barbara that she's not Batman and not even worth his time. And the post-launch campaigns, the first one stars Red Hood. He's trying to kill Black Mass, and yeah, I mean kill. He starts to infiltrate Black Mass's operation and eventually kills the guy. It's one of the more violent campaigns, but it definitely shows that Jason Todd, despite becoming more of a figure of justice, is a much more violent figure of justice. He also has Batman's symbol tattooed on his chest, showing that he's forgiven Batman to a degree, I guess, and has decided to follow a different path, but a more violent path. We then get to see another post-launch campaign starring Nightwing. This one is much more basic in my opinion, and the worst of them all. Basically, Penguin is trying to break out of the police department and Nightwing has to stop him. That really is it. There's no exciting battle, there's a large Predator challenge, and that's really it. Then again, there's also the Catwoman DLC. Basically, Catwoman wants revenge against Riddler for putting that explosive collar on her neck, and with Riddler gone, she can infiltrate his home base and steal all his money, which she's successful in doing so. It's one of the more challenging combat challenges, because in the finale you have to take on all these robots in an ever-shrinking environment, but eventually Selina does come up on top and steals over $2 million from Riddler, leaving him penniless. The most exciting one to me is Tim Drake's campaign. Taking place after the events of Nightfall, Robin continues his work that Batman trained him for. He's trying to live up to Batman, but everyone keeps talking down to him that he's not Batman, that he should give this up. Of course, this gets to Tim, but his new wife, Barbara, is trying to give him the confidence that he can be better than Batman, that he shouldn't try and compete with him. And of course, Tim Drake comes out on top. He's able to stop Two-Face, and in my opinion, proves everyone wrong, and even proves himself wrong, that he is more than Batman, that he can still be a superhero, and he isn't Batman. He is Robin, and that's what he should be. Now, should there be a sequel to Batman Arkham Knight? Now, it's very difficult to create a sequel to the Batman Arkham Knight game, mostly because you can't continue this series indefinitely. After all, Batman isn't a person, he's a title, and anyone can inherit that title. Heck, one of the side missions in Batman Arkham Knight is Azrael trying to usurp Batman, Bruce Wayne Batman specifically, and become the new Batman. And there have been other people who've taken on the mantle of Batman in the comic series, such as Nightwing, Commissioner Gordon, even Bane has been Batman at one point. So there have been multiple Batmans throughout history, so they can continue it with Tim Drake or even Nightwing. There have been rumors of a Batman Arkham Legacy being developed by the people who made Batman Arkham Origins, and judging by the name, I would assume it would deal with Batman's family, such as Nightwing and Tim Drake or Jason Todd. Maybe they will fight over who should take over as Batman, but I doubt that Nightwing would want to be Batman because he wants to establish his own identity. It would basically be Jason Todd more likely and Tim Drake fighting one another. There was rumors of a new Batman game in development that starred Damian Wade. For those who don't know, Damian Wade was the son of Talia and Batman. We see no evidence that Damian is even in this universe, but apparently this game was in development and it would have Damian taking on the role of Batman, and it would utilize the Middle-earth Nemesis system where different thugs that Damian fought would learn from his tactics and eventually develop that sort of Nemesis relationship. So that would have been cool, but unfortunately that game was apparently cancelled and we haven't seen a new game since then. I mean, there was rumors that a new Batman game was supposed to be debuted at the Game Awards 2019, but that came and went and nothing happened. So what are you gonna do? So let's give out some awards. I mean, we've checked out a lot of games. This video is over an hour and a half long, so let's just keep moving forward, because why the hell not? So award for the best Batman Arkham game goes to Batman Arkham City, because it not only developed an incredible sequel to an already fantastic game, but it had so many hidden secrets. When I explored this game for a second time, I found even more secrets, such as Hush appearing at the beginning of the game if you look close enough, which you should also check out my Easter egg video on Batman Arkham City. And the reward for the worst Batman Arkham game goes to Blackgate, of course, because Blackgate was a terrible, mediocre platformer. I will say it. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that, but I did not like Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. Alright, let's move on. Best soundtrack, it goes to Batman Arkham Knight for the soundtrack Inner Demons, which I cannot play because World Music Organization will claim this video in its entirety because that's what they do. For the best boss battle award, that goes to Deathstroke in Batman Arkham Origins because not only was it super difficult, but it was also one of the more challenging boss fights and incredibly well executed. For the worst boss fight, that goes to the Cobra Tank with the Arkham Knight. I mean, seriously, what is this? They just decide, let's make a Cobra Tank with a spinning sensor. So exciting. Dear God, why? Why this? And the best moment in all of the Batman Arkham series is this moment right here.
I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman.
And on that note, thank you all for joining me. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share. It took me a very long time to get all the gameplay for this video, not to mention editing and voicing this. I'm not the best speaker, as you can tell, and it takes me a while longer in order to record all this. But for everyone who joined me, I am eternally grateful. Till next time, everyone, remember to stay awesome.